Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Raising Confident Girls. I'm so happy you're here today. I am Melissa Jones, the host and founder of Girls Positivity Club, and we have an episode that I think is relevant to every girl's life, whether you are young or older, even adults struggle with this, and that is comparison. We all know the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And we all know it's true, but it's so easy, I think, especially with social media and just even with the culture of comparing different people to each other. We just naturally do it. So I think we can never start too early to teach our girls how to manage that and how to break free from it, because comparison can sneak in so early, and she may notice it with other girls' looks, with who's smarter, who's more popular, who has more things, who has just it can be a variety, a multitude of things. And so while noticing differences is normal because we're humans and we're going to notice differences, it's comparison that turns into self-criticism that chips away at her confidence. So I did this a lot as a kid, and I felt very secure at home in my home with my mom and my stepdad, and I felt very loved and safe there. But I did a lot of comparison outside of the home. So whether it was my cousin, who I thought had a perfect life, who I thought was prettier, had more friends, had everything going for her, even though she was really nice to me, she didn't ever put her comparison on me. I just always felt like I was trying to measure myself up to her, and in every way. And whether it was a cousin or if it was girls at school and like who had more friends or who did better on a certain assignment and things like that. And so I really fell into this trap at a very early age, and my mom really didn't know how to help me with it. So I always want to empower you and help you feel like some actual practical tools that you can use with your daughter and the girls in your life. That's always the intention of every episode. And if you find it helpful or you found this show helpful, the best compliment would be to share it with other parents and caregivers who it could help. So send this episode or send the show in general to another parent or caregiver of a girl. It would mean the world, because that is the intention of this show, is to empower as many of you as possible, which then empowers the girls in their life, and it creates a ripple effect of raising that next generation, having more tools, more confidence, more all the things. So that is what we're talking about today, is comparison. So let's talk about 5 ways that you can help your daughter build confidence that doesn't depend on measuring herself against others. So I hear girls talk about this all the time, and that is noticing how many friends someone has or how much fun it looks like they're having. If they're older and they're on social media, it can look like, especially filters, like looking a certain way, or a body image, like some things just come up on their feed. I talked to a high schooler about this a couple months ago, and she was talking about how it makes you wonder if your body is supposed to look a certain way. And we talked about unmuting those accounts and things like that. But it is something that, even if you have a friend who is posting something on social media, or she's doing something in front of you or whatever, like getting a good grade or doing well in a sports team, or is more advanced in something than your daughter or the girls in your life, it's like easy to think, wow, she's so good at that, maybe I shouldn't try. Or I'll never be that good. Like those are the negative thoughts that can sneak in for girls. And so we want to equip them. So here are the 5 tips. Number 1 is to name the comparison trap. So parents will often say, and I know I've said this too, don't compare yourself to others. And it's not that that's a terrible thing to say, because, I always say this on the podcast. I'm not a perfect person. I've said all kinds of things, but I think sometimes we don't know what to say. And so we just say kind of these blanket statements. But the reason saying don't compare yourself to others is something that isn't helpful for girls is that they don't want to. And it's easier said than done. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, I won't compare myself to others. Like it's a natural thing that comes up when they are in a certain activity that they love to do and they are doing their best, but they see someone else who's doing better or whatever the case would be. Instead, we can help them notice differences, but also emphasizing that it doesn't mean that they're less. So I think about the one time that I tried out in middle school for cheerleading. And I practiced with this girl after school who was really good. And I was not that good. Like my movements were not that tight. She had the whole cheer thing down. And I was comparing myself to her. I'm like, man, she's really good. And I'm not remembering the steps. My arms are bent when hers are straight, whatever the case was. And so it's just different. Yes, she was better at that than me, but that's okay. Like I can be better at something else. So I think also there's a fear of when we tell them it's okay to be different, and even when it's glaring that someone's better at something than them, it feels kind of like we're dismissing that they could even be that good. So to me, it wouldn't have been like my mom saw us practicing together and she probably did say something like, don't compare yourself, but I wanted to compare myself because I wanted to get better. So encouraging them that, yes, they may be better at something at that moment, but maybe they've practiced it for a long time, or maybe that's their natural ability, or maybe they are not good at other things that you are. And so it's normal to notice those differences, but it doesn't mean you're less than as a person. And if you want to get better at it, it just may take more practice. And so pointing out that comparison shows up and saying that in different ways. So at the younger ages, 6 to 9, you could say different doesn't mean better. Like, but I also know that kids know when someone is better at something than them. And it doesn't mean though that they'll never be better at it. So I don't think we should say things like, and I'm never, when I say don't say, I've said all kinds of things. So it's never meant to be like a degrading thing if you've ever said any of these things, but it's just a way to get us kind of more aware as parents and caregivers of girls, is like, instead of saying that's just her natural thing, you can get better at it too. Like if you really want to get better at it, you can. And it takes time, as we all know, and no one wants to hear that, but different doesn't always mean better. So if someone has, for example, if it's a skill that you can improve, then you can get better at that too. But if someone, for example, has longer legs than me, I'm not going to say, yes, she has longer legs and I would love to have longer legs, but it doesn't mean her legs are necessarily better. It just means they're a different shape. Or if she has naturally curly hair and I have naturally straight hair, it doesn't mean that her hair is better. Maybe I do want curly hair and I curl my hair, but it's just different. So it's just helping them reframe it as it's just different. She can be pretty and so can you. She can be good at it and so can you. You can be good at one thing and she cannot. And I mean, people are good at different things. At 10 to 13, if she like keeping track of a wins list or a strengths list, making it visual. I love in Girls Positivity Club making strengths visual so the girls can remind themselves of it, and making like an I'm proud of myself for this list. So it could be a strengths list. We made strength shields the other couple weeks ago in Girls Positivity Club, like a paper squishy where they made a shield and they like drew and wrote their strengths. And then we made it into a squishy. And so then the idea is that when they need a reminder, they can squish it or they can see it as a visual. So just again, finding a visual way, whether it's words, whether it's in a journal, whether it's on a poster, whether it's on a chalkboard that they have in their room, whatever it is, just writing those things down that are their wins. And they don't have to be big accomplishments. They can be progress things too. So that is a way to help really make those visual for her. And then as they're getting older, they might want to journal especially if they like to write, what I'm proud of about myself that other people don't see, or what people don't see on social media. Like if they're teenagers and later teenagers, and that's really glaring to them, is that highlight reel. Everybody's life looks perfect because that's how they're presenting it. What I'm proud of that's not seen on social media, or what I'm not, whatever, what I'm proud of is an easy way to do it. It's the same idea, but just they might want to be a little bit more private about it and just like do it before they go to bed. You could even do that with them, is just ask them if they're not big writers and they don't necessarily journal or anything. This could also be a digital journal. They could put it in their notes app of their phone, or if they don't even like to do that, they could voice note, this is what I'm proud of today. That would be an easy thing. When she can spot the trap, she's less likely to fall into it. So it's like when you're naming what you're comparing, same thing with like naming something that you're jealous of. It like once you say it, it diminishes its power. And so when she sees and can spot the trap, oh, I normally feel comparison coming on when this is happening, she can be more aware of it and use that reframe of, I'm just different. It doesn't mean that she's better than me in every way. It just means it's different. We're different. Tip number 2 is reframing success. So I always call it flipping it with the girls, like flipping things. And so what parents might say is, oh, she's just gifted at that. You don't have to be like her. Or, oh, she's naturally skinny. You don't have to be her size. Or she's naturally blah, 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 whatever. You don't have to be like that. That can sometimes make them feel kind of like they're second best, or that they'll never achieve that, like I was talking about earlier. And like you don't believe in them that they could possibly be that good or be that fill in the blank. And so that's never our intention. Like we're always just trying to make them feel better, but they can feel like we're saying they can never achieve it. And so instead, you could say her win doesn't take away from yours. There's plenty to go around. Like I always think that, like there's plenty to go around, because we can all compare. We can see people going on vacations. We can see people accomplishing a certain thing in their career. It can look like people have a perfect life, but it's like they can have a great life and so can I. And teaching that to our girls when we're noticing that we're starting to fall into that comparison. And so it's just ways to celebrate her unique progress. And you can do the same for you too. And I always say too, like if you ever seen something on social media that's making you feel a certain way, like it's not in a positive way, you can always mute that person and you don't have to see it. They don't get a notification, you're muting them. Or you can just scroll on by. You don't have to focus on it. And so when you are celebrating her unique progress, you can give the example, even as I had a mom one year who described this to me and like how she describes it to her daughter, which I thought was beautiful. She talked about how they had a bush that grew berries, and they were out there picking berries one day, and she told her daughter that, do you notice how this one is ripe and these are not ripe yet? She was like, yeah. And she's like, well, we pick the ripe ones, but we let the others ripen in their own time. So it's like that with comparison. It's also like that with flowers. It's like that berry isn't any better because it ripened sooner, or it's sweeter sooner. It just means that that other one wasn't ripe yet. And same thing with flowers. They all grow and bloom at different times. So it's like, just because a flower opens up and blooms before another flower, we're not like, oh, that's the better flower. That's the more beautiful flower. It's like, oh, good. There's more coming. And they're all when they all bloom, it'll be beautiful. And so just giving her those examples as she's growing up, like in the younger ages, really helps, like that 6 to 9 age group. And then as they're getting older, at like 10 to 13, you could even find a way to make her progress visual. So again, like we were talking about a strengths list before, you could do every time she, does something that's making progress toward a goal, you do a visual in some way. Maybe it's you. I mean, this is kind of old school, but maybe it's a marble jar. You every time it's like, yep, you made a step in the right direction. You did that thing. You're making progress, marble jar. And then it just makes a visual of like it filling up. Maybe if she's a person who likes charts, you could, not that I'm saying you need to make a sticker chart, but she could make her own progress chart. There's a lot of ownership in doing that. Like, especially if you have a girl who is logical and she likes to see a visual map of something progressing along, she could make her own little chart and you could talk about how that could look and how that could be. And then times when she would put a tick on it or a check on it or make the line or whatever it would be to show her progress, just so that she's having a visual in some way. I'm sure there are digital tools you could do that too. And then ages 14 to 18, as they're getting older, compare your current self to your past self, not to others. So I always say to myself when I find myself comparing, all I'm trying to do is be better than I was yesterday. So it's taking steps forward, just those baby steps that we're taking forward, and look at who I was yesterday compared to today, or last year compared to this year. Because I think sometimes at any age, and especially as they're getting older and their academics are getting heavier and they're seeing people make plans for the future, it's like you forget where you were because you're where you are in that moment. So it's like helping them see how far they've come from before to now and knowing that they're going to keep progressing. So it's just reminding her of that and helping her and having her verbalize some of those examples. And it could look like, I know this feels really hard right now because you're in it. Let's think about you last year in this certain area. Were you able to do this? No. So what did you have to do to get here? They're like, oh, I had to practice a lot. I had to do a lot of problems. I had to, whatever it is, I had to teach myself how to do this certain skill. And I had to keep practicing it over and over again. So it's just, again, helping them see that they can compare themselves to where they used to be. And that's a better use of their energy than comparing themselves to a totally different person. And a lot of times they don't even know where that person has been as far as in their whole journey. They may do things every day to work on that, but no one sees that. They may do, if it's an academic, maybe they do extra practice problems at night because they're so determined to get to this next level of math, or maybe they read tons of books and that's why they can have the more difficult book in the book club at school. Or maybe they practice in their spare time 100 kicks a day in whatever sport. So before practice. So then comparing themselves to like, why are they winning all the time? Or why are they scoring so well? Well, they're probably putting in a little bit of extra practice. You don't know what someone's doing. So don't worry about that. Instead, focus on who you were and who you're becoming today and where you're wanting to go. And like, just kind of staying on their own path. Her journey is hers and it's not a race. So same thing with the berry example that the parent gave the girl. It's like, when you're having berries on a pie or on a dessert or whatever as a snack, you're not looking at those and being like, oh, I wonder which one was first and to ripen. Like, no one cares about that. You're just enjoying the dessert. So it's like that with anything, it's just more about the journey and how you progress in your own way, not how fast someone gets to a certain spot. So just reminding her of that. Number 3 is to limit the comparison triggers. So when we say things like, just get off your phone if it's bothering you. Yes, that's true, but it doesn't really address why she's scrolling. Or if you're like, oh, just don't spend time with those people. that's true, but it's not really addressing what it is that's bothering her. So instead, try saying something like, let's notice how you're feeling when this comes up for you. So if she is doing a lot of scrolling and she seems kind of down afterwards, or she's irritable or whatever it is, you can say, why are you feeling that way? What were you seeing? And just have a conversation about it. And same thing if it's in person. What is it that made you feel irritated about that? Or what is it that made you feel sad when you were watching her do her certain thing? So, if you are talking social media, it's making sure that she's seeing positive content and it's checking in with her about it. Like, even I'm a really big fan of checking in about what she's following. Like, what is something you're learning about? Like, what are some things you're following that you're learning about? Or what is something that makes you feel really positive? Or what is something that doesn't make you feel that way? So teaching her, especially she's getting older, like even at the younger ages, I'm not saying social media, but just in using technology, what makes you feel good? Like, what are a lot of the younger kids watch YouTube videos, and there's a lot of really good stuff on YouTube, but there's also the opposite. So what is it that's making you feel positive, and making sure that she's seeing things like that more than the things that are making her feel the opposite. And then it's doing that body check after scrolling when she's older. And is it same thing with, like, in the past episode, we talked about friends and how you feel around your friends. It's like, how do you feel when you're watching certain content? If I'm watching dancing videos that bring me joy, or comedy videos about a certain thing, I feel great. I feel energized. If I'm watching heartwarming stories about people who are helping others, I feel energized. I feel touched. If I'm watching things that is, models that are super skinny and look like they have this perfect life, perfect hair, perfect this, perfect that, it's going to make me feel drained. So it's teaching her how to check in about with her body as she's getting older about how she's feeling. Do you feel energized or drained after you see those things? And then it's taking breaks. If we're again talking about social media, it's taking a break from the app you're comparing yourself to. And there's nothing wrong with doing a digital detox, just they are very concerned at the teen ages about being disconnected from friends and missing out. So it's just helping her see that if it's not making you feel good, taking a break from it is going to be really good for you. And if it's in-person things, aside from using technology and social media, it's the same thing. It's like, limit those environments where you find yourself comparing. And that doesn't mean that you're never going to be around anything that compares. It's just you're limiting that time around maybe that elite team all the time. Yes, maybe you practice with them because practicing with people that are better makes you better. But maybe then you're also spending time practicing with people that are more your skill level, or whatever the case would be. So in real life, it's finding out what her triggers are and helping her manage those by limiting the triggers that are going to make her feel less than, more than she feels good about who she is. So bringing that awareness just helps her choose what builds her up. And really, I think it would be easy to say, just don't ever put them in any situation where they compare, but that's impossible because it's human nature. So it's just bringing that awareness to her of helping her choose environments, people, activities that build her up and make her feel good, instead of comparing herself more than she is feeling good. And then tip number 2 is building that inner voice of value. So parents will often say, I know I've said this too, you're beautiful just the way you are. You're perfect just the way you are, which is true. But for them, they hear it sounds generic. You have to say that because you're my mom, you're my dad, you're my auntie, you're my whoever. And so it's like, when we say things like that, we mean well, but she doesn't believe it because it just sounds like something you just say when you don't know what else to say, or because you're her parent or caregiver. And so instead, be more specific. I'm really big on positive praise that's very specific. It doesn't have to go on for paragraph, but just saying like, I love how hard you worked on that project. When you did this one thing and like you stuck with it, that was great. Or I really admire how you kept trying until you figured it out. So being specific about what the thing is, like you didn't know that dance routine when you first started. And now look, it's been 2 weeks later and you've been practicing and memorizing and doing the the choreography with your friend, and now you know it, or whatever the case would be. So really naming the specific progress instead of just saying, you've made a lot of progress, great job. It's not that that's bad to say, but just saying like, I know how hard you worked on that project. Your presentation looked so good at the end, or I see you working hard. Like just saying, noticing her progress while she's in it too, and being specific about what you notice and her effort is really important. So, the way that you can do this is you can be specific, like I said, in those affirmations, and you can create tools. So, she could even create a tool where she's doing this for herself, where she is building that inner voice by creating a kindness words jar. So you just take a jar or a cup and you have her write on a piece of paper. Maybe you do this before bed every night together. Write a kind word about yourself today. What were you today? That was a kind thing you could say about yourself. And then they write the word on the slip of paper and you put it in the cup or you put it in the jar. And then that's it. And then maybe you say one about yourself and maybe you do it with her. And then you can ask her, like, what made you feel that way? And so then you have a conversation about it. Maybe she says, a good friend. And you say, well, how were you a good friend today? And then she tells you. And you're like, that was good. And then maybe she says to you, what would your word be? And then you tell her, I was brave today. And then you tell how you're brave. I spoke up in a meeting today. I made a phone call that I was scared to make, or whatever the thing is. So that's a way that you can make it visual and make it like a little activity ritual you do together. The thing that I tell older girls too is, and I think you can do that kind words jar at any age, but ages 10 to 13, telling her to talk to herself like she would a best friend. So if she's tearing herself down and saying, like, I'm not good at this, I'm that, you can say, what would you say to your friend if she was feeling this way? And they 9 times out of 10, I would say 10 times out of 10 can say exactly what they would say to that friend. And you can even name the person's name. What would you say to Sarah in this case? What would you say to Megan? Well, whoever. And then they would tell you and you'd say, now say that to yourself. So it's just reminding her that we need to also talk to ourselves like we would a best friend. And when we notice that we're doing those negative thoughts, we can notice it, acknowledge it, and then take action to think a different thought. So tell yourself something positive and true. So if you're like, I'll never get this, you can say, I'm trying my hardest to get this, or I don't have it yet, but I'm getting there. Something like that. So just thinking like, what would you say to a friend? And then say that to yourself. And then as they're getting older into that teenage, it's practicing a mirror pep talk. So they're going to say that it's cheesy, it's corny, it's cringy, whatever they say, but you can do it with her again. And maybe you can do it first to model it and just even make it like a fun thing. But it's looking at yourself in the mirror. I know Mel Robbins talks about this with the high five habit, giving yourself a high five in the mirror and telling yourself you can do it, or telling yourself it's going to be a great day, or telling yourself 3 things that you like about yourself, or 3 things you're excited about for the day, or something like that. Just whatever will give you that little pep or that encouragement for yourself. Looking at yourself in the mirror, try this at home. It's a very powerful thing to do. And they don't have to worry about being embarrassed if someone's going to hear them or see them, but they can just do it. Like look in the mirror and just say, you are this, you are that, you are kind, you're amazing. And if that sounds too fake or cheesy to them at that age, then they can say encouraging words to themselves. You can do this. Keep going. You've got this. Whatever it would be for them. And it's very powerful. So even if it's just starting with a high five habit, like Mel Robbins, you just give yourself a high five and say one kind thing. Because what we're trying to do with the girls is help them build their inner voice, because we can say all the kind things to them, but until they internalize that and they start saying it to themselves and get in the habit of doing that, it's going to just be, I mean, honestly, it's going to be something we always work on, is that lifelong soundtrack. And we want their soundtrack to be encouraging. And yes, every person, every human is going to have negative thoughts, because that's your brain's job, is to protect you. But we want to teach them as much as possible to be able to flip that and do something encouraging for yourself, say something kind to yourself on repeat, because it's such a powerful thing to do. And that's what we want for our girls. We want them to have that lifelong soundtrack. And then tip number 5 is model self-compassion. So I know I've said this before, like, oh, I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't eat this. And it's because I'm like, oh, I shouldn't eat this because it's too many calories, or I shouldn't do this because I can't even think of an example for that, but maybe it's something like, oh, I shouldn't avoid going for a walk, or that's a terrible example, but just thinking about something that's critical of yourself, or like, oh, I'm so dumb, I shouldn't have done that. Like maybe it's something more like that. My mom used to say, I'm such an idiot for doing that. And so it's on accident, it's modeling that self-critical talk. And so in what that's doing is teaching her to kind of compare. In a way, it's kind of like that self-comparison. You're thinking like, oh, I shouldn't do that because I should look like this, or I should act like this. So instead, we want to model that positive talk. And yes, of course, again, everybody's going to slip up, or everybody's going to say something from time to time. But more times than not, we want to model that self-talk out loud. Like, I can do that. Like, I made a mistake, I messed up, but I know I'll get it next time, whatever that sounds like for you. So narrating, especially at a younger age, your own wins and your own imperfections. So when they're younger, you could say, I made a mistake, but I'm still learning. I'm figuring it out. I know I'll figure it out. Or, oh man, I can't believe I did that. Well, next time I'll try this and it'll be okay. So that is going to help her hear you model it. And then she's more likely to do it too. And then it's like I said before, when you're sharing like your kind words or whatever, you share your own proud moments and ask what hers are. Like, oh, I'm so proud of myself today. I went for a walk at lunch. I really needed a break from my computer screen, and it felt really great to go outside. I'm so proud of myself for actually getting out of my office and walking outside, or whatever the case would be. So sharing like, oh, I did something really kind for somebody at the store today. They couldn't reach a shelf. They were reaching for something on a top shelf, and I knew I could reach it. So I just did. And that felt really good. I was proud of that because it was a simple act of kindness that I did. What was one of your proud moments? So again, it's just verbalizing these and saying some of those things out loud to model that self-compassion and that that positive self-talk. And then as they're getting older, it's talking about not comparing your life stage to others. So it's kind of like you don't ever know what chapter someone's in of doing something. So someone who's just starting out, who's in their chapter 1, their day 1, is going to look very different than someone who's a professional at it, or someone who's been doing it for 10,000 times. And so it's really talking with her, especially if it's an interest, like an area of interest. If they're a singer, if they're a musician, if they're an actor, if they're whatever, even a baker, a cook, a seamstress, whatever it is. Like some people like to design fashion, and some people like to do whatever. So it's, especially with sports, it's looking at, like, I know that my teenager did this, is like, how long have they been doing this certain thing? So it's like, I'm never going to be up to their level. And it's like, well, they've been doing it since they were 5, and you just started it back up again because you took a break and played soccer and came back to the sport. So they haven't stopped. it's not bad that you stopped because you were doing soccer. You were very competitive in soccer, and then you came back to this other sport. And it's like, of course they're going to be in a different level because they haven't stopped doing it. And that's okay. Like, you can be at your own level and you're not that far off from them. Like, look how close you are to those people. They've kept doing it this whole time. You took a break and now look, you're very close to where they are. So you just have to keep going. So it's just teaching them how to reframe it in those ways, because she learns from us talking about those things and also learning by our examples. So the more that we can compare in a positive way, like ourselves and who we were and where we're going and how we've progressed and things like that, the better. And teaching them how to reframe things when we are comparing is really important. And I think it's something that we often forget to do, because comparison is human, but it doesn't have to be harmful. When you name it, you can reframe it as a success. So just naming it and helping her see it as progress, not perfection, and that you don't have to be at the same level as someone else. And so, really it's about building that inner voice, modeling self-compassion, showing her how to stand strong, even when she notices others around her are at a different level, because that is just human nature to compare ourselves to others. And so I think the more we can equip them with doing just one of these things, they're a step ahead of, I didn't know how to do any of these things when I was growing up. And so I think it's just giving them the tools while they're growing up so that they know what to do. And it's us doing it too. I think that's the beautiful thing, is like, we can do these things too. And we're always growing. We're always changing. If we stay the same, then we're not growing. And so just also reframing it as, you're not going to be the same person as you were a few weeks ago in a certain thing if you keep at it and you keep working at it, or you are going to change. Your body is going to change, and it's okay that you aren't at the same, whatever. She can be that, and so can you. There's plenty to go around. Everybody can be beautiful in their own way. And it's just reminding her of those things that can help her in her everyday life. Notice the comparison and stop it in its tracks, and then replace it with something that's more empowering. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you did find it helpful, please share it with a friend or caregiver or parent of a girl who they would like to help. And I think the more of us that are out there helping creates a ripple effect in the world. And really the ultimate goal is to help raise a generation of girls who know what to do. And I want you right now to think of one way that you have grown stronger than you were yesterday. So it doesn't have to be literally yesterday, but think right now of a certain area in your life where you haven't really thought about it in a while, even as the parent or caregiver, and where you've progressed, and be proud of yourself for that, and do the same for your daughter. So until next time, keep raising those confident girls, and I hope you have a great week ahead. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.